All right, everybody. Hello. We're ready to begin. Have you ever been waiting at one of those live stream things and it keeps saying, we'll be with you in a minute, we'll be with you in a minute? Now I know what's going on as we're waiting for the minutes. So we've connected with Mark Trozy, and we know that he knows that we're ready to go. So I am going to welcome you. My name is Barbara Burrows, and it's with a great deal of support that I have organized this third Justice for Medicine Symposium. And I'm delighted to welcome you into my home and into my backyard. Donations are gratefully accepted as the goal is not only to share information, but also to raise funds for Justice for Medicine, an organization that helps with the legal fees for the Ontario doctors who have disagreed with and spoken publicly regarding Health Canada's approach to COVID. The doctors who offered patients informed consent and have spoken publicly regarding their concerns have been disciplined by the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario as severely as doctors who have sexually abused or even killed their patients, with suspension and possible loss of license. They are fighting a legal battle to protect their right to disagree openly with government policy and to protect the constitutional rights of all of us. The next Justice for Medicine event will be in Guelph on September 21st, and we hope other communities would also like to host. So if you would like to help me to bring these speakers to your community, please let me know. There has been a slight change of plans since I promoted this, as Dr. David Speaker and Dr. Chris Shoemaker, who intended to be with us, have been called away to other events. Unfortunately, neither of them can attend. This event will be live streamed and recorded. The audience will not be in the recording. It will only be the speakers. I will now introduce the first of four speakers. I hope four speakers. I've had a number of phone calls to tell me people are tied up on the highway, and I think Derek Sloan is probably one of them. Anyway, we've got three speakers ready to go, and these speakers will be available to chat with you throughout the evening. So, the first speaker that I have the pleasure to introduce has over 30 years' experience in the area of constitutional law, administrative law, insurance law, libel and defamation law, and public policy. He has appeared before government tribunals and commissions, trial and appeal courts, and the Supreme Court of Canada in matters ranging from commercial insurance disputes to violations of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. In 2005, he appeared as a self-represented litigant and legal counsel at the Supreme Court of Canada, where he obtained a rare unanimous judgment against State Farm US in a case that saved consumers hundreds of millions of dollars in new homeowner insurance premiums. He holds law degrees from the University of Toronto and Columbia University, where he also studied political science and philosophy at the graduate level. While holding the Laidlaw Fellowship in Law and Political Science, he also studied at the University of Chicago. Currently, his practice is devoted exclusively to defending doctors who are being persecuted by the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario, contrary to due process and to the Charter guarantees of freedom of expression and informed consent. The doctors he represents have lost their livelihoods, which means Michael has put in hundreds of hours of work pro bono. Please join me in welcoming Michael Alexander. Would you let somebody to hold the mic for you, or are you good?
Okay. Thank you, Barbara, and thank you so much for holding this second annual event. I ran into Anna earlier today. She was here last year, and she said I look younger this year than last year. So I think this should be an annual event, because if I can turn that into a trend, thank you, Anna. Last year, I started off by talking to you about my love affair with basketball and how that led me to become a strong believer in equal opportunity as a principle that I carry forward in my practice and in my daily life. You seem to like that story, so I thought I might tell you another basketball story. Can I do that? All right. So I gave up a career as a competitive figure skater when I was 13 to try to play basketball, even though I was only 4'11" and 84 pounds. I finally made the team when I was in grade 10. And at that time, the New York Knicks were the dominant basketball team in the US. And I worshiped the Knicks and their center, Willis Reed, who was the greatest player in basketball at that time. The Knicks had just won the World Championship. He was named the most valuable player in the playoffs, the most valuable player in the All-Star game, and the most valuable player during the regular season. I got my weekly edition of Sports Illustrated, and there was a little article in the back of it. And it said, Bob Lanier, who was a top college player at that time, was working out with Willis at Willis's summer basketball camp. And I thought, well, I want to go work out with Willis too. So I guess I'll write to him, see if I can go. So I wrote him a personal letter boasting about my game. I put it in a little envelope, and this is before the internet, and I didn't know how to address it. So I just put Willis Reed, Madison Square Garden, New York City. I tossed it in the mail in Little Chatham, Ontario, and it got to him. 3 weeks later, I got a personal letter back from him with an autographed picture and an invitation to come to the camp. So July comes around. My mother flies to New York with me. We spend the night at the Hilton. And the next day, we go to a bus stop where New York City players are picked up to go out to the camp. I get up into the bus, and I'm surrounded by about 70 kids, inner city kids, who are probably some of the top street ball and high school players in the city. I am terrified. So the bus pulls away and kind of, bye, Mom. Have a nice life. I get to the camp, and it is mind-blowing. Every day we play basketball from 9 in the morning till 9 at night. We have workshops, seminars, lectures, drills. We're all put into leagues. We play games twice a day. The coaches are all top college players. An NBA All-Star drops in every day for a special 1-hour talk. And Willis is there at the camp every day, and with a couple of other NBA players and the college coaches and the college players who are there, they have a game right in front of us on the court. So there I am every night watching the greatest basketball player in the world do his thing. And I saw things just were extraordinary. But the competition was very intense. By the end of the week, I was in pretty bad shape. Called my mother late one night, and I was in tears. I said, Mom, what have I gotten myself into? So we get to the last day of camp, and the camp, Willis and the coaches choose an all-star team, the top 20 players in the camp, to put on a big show for everyone else. I am chosen for the all-star team. Don't ask me how that happened. I think it happened because I was very quick to pick up on what they were teaching and deploy it in the games. And so I think they thought, this little 5'3" guy from small town Ontario, he might be a player someday. We better support him. So mostly I made my reputation on defense and rebounding, believe it or not. They didn't know secretly I was a shooter. So when I got into the game, every time I got the ball, I shot it. Every time I shot it, it went in. At halftime, I was the leading scorer. So I'll never forget, I ran over to the bench at halftime. My coach, Wade Pittman, was there, and he was a top U.S. college guard, and he had this agitated look on his face, and he said, "You just throw the ball up and it goes in. How do you do that?" That's what we do in Canada. We throw the ball up, it goes in. That's what we do. So I went back to Willis's camp for the next 3 summers. I was named an all-star every summer, and I eventually became a player on a high school team that went to the All-Ontario Championships. In fact, I was a starting guard on the team. Thank you. So at the age of 14, I learned a very important lesson, which I have carried with me throughout my life and that I use every day, and that is, if you take a risk that's big enough, amazing things can happen. So I'm here today asking you to take a risk with me and Dr. Mark Troese. Let me tell you briefly about this case because it is a unique case in the COVID wars so far. All of the COVID cases in Ontario and in other jurisdictions have been decided on a standard called reasonableness. So that's a very low standard of review. So when somebody decides to challenge what a college, for instance, has done, some decision it's made, you go into the court system on this standard of reasonableness. And the court more or less defers to what the administrative body's interpretation of its law may be. In other words, they've got special expertise, they've got special enabling legislation. So we really don't want to interfere with what they're doing. Only if they do something egregiously wrong will we overturn the decision. So on that basis, we've lost most of the cases so far. Mark's case is very different, and it's part of a 3-year strategy. So I knew that we would lose all of the motions, and we'd lose the decision at the tribunal in Mark's case. But we did that in order to get a chance to go into the court system on the higher standard of review, which is correctness. Now, you only get to the correctness on a special basis. The Supreme Court ruled in 2019 that if you have a statutory right to appeal in the enabling legislation of your particular body, or in this case, health college, if you have a statutory right of appeal, you don't go into the court system on the standard of reasonableness. You go on the standard of correctness. So it's taken us 3 years to get to the place where we can do that. Now we are going to the divisional court on October the 8th, and the court will have to get the right answer, the correct answer on every issue of law we put before it. No deference to the college. So this is the first case of its kind in Canada. We're going to be challenging 3 things. Number 1, the college has prosecuted Mark based on policies and statements and guidelines that somebody posted on their website. You can't do that. The Ontario Court of Appeal has said that policies and guideline statements do not have the force of law. But they have been employed against Mark and applied against doctors throughout the province on the basis that these instruments are in fact the law. They're not. So we should win on that point because the authority on it is uncontradicted. Okay. The second issue is goes to how they set the standards of practice. And so they have to go through a particular reasoning process to get to the standard of practice, be able to say somebody has failed to maintain the standard. They haven't done this in Mark's case or in the case of the other doctors. So we have another point there on which we can win. We're also going to be challenging the college on the grounds of freedom of expression. Now, under our charter, fundamental freedoms can be limited or regulated by the government under a special clause, Section 1 of the charter. So under that clause, the government can come forward and say, we've got evidence that we're pursuing the public good, and the public good is so good that we have the right to infringe your fundamental rights. But there's a way to sidestep that limitation clause. I've been looking at Supreme Court jurisprudence since 1939, and it's very clear when you look at all of the case law that in Canada, the courts have said that there is absolute protection for minority or dissenting opinions on any matter. As long as you're not breaking the law, as long as you're not trying to incite violence, as long as you're not a pornographer, as long as you're not fomenting hate speech, your expression is fundamentally protected under our charter. And everybody has forgotten about the cases that establish this proposition. I don't know why lawyers are not arguing it. We are probably going to be the first people in the country to try to restore the true meaning of freedom of expression and freedom of speech under the charter. So our position is this. Yeah, you can regulate the right, but you cannot defeat it. right? And that's what they've done with Mark and the other doctors. They have defeated their right to express a minority or dissenting opinion about politics, our public policies, and health science. So if we are successful in this case, on this very high standard of correctness, we will liberate Mark and all the other doctors who have been persecuted during the so-called pandemic. We will change the face of administrative law in this country. And if we are successful on the charter argument, we will change the face of democracy in this country. So I'm here today asking you for your support in that endeavor and to take this big risk with us. The stakes could not be higher. And you never know, if you take the risk, you might make the all-star team. Thank you.
Will you vote for me? You vote it for me?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So now it's my thank you, Michael. And now it's my pleasure to introduce, whoops, what's happening? Why am I getting feedback? Oh, okay.
Right.
Over here? Here.
Okay.
This is where we did it. Okay. I think probably our next speaker doesn't need very much introduction. And now Dr. Trozy lives far, far away, so he wasn't able to join us in person today as he was at our first, it's our second backyard symposium, but there was one at a church too. So he's going to be joining us electronically. He's been a physician practicing emergency medicine for 30 years with extensive rural emergency experience and a strong interest in trauma medicine. He has taught medical students at Queen's University, American College of Surgeons, Sunnybrook Health Science Center, and University of Ottawa. He has a special interest in mentoring medical students and residents. He has served on the steering committee and chaired the Health Science Committee of the World Council of Health. He is a health science advisor to a wellness company, as well as medical advisor to various health and human rights organizations, including Take Action Canada, Justice for the Vaccinated, Strong and Free Canada, and South African Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting Systems. He is a member of the Canada Health Alliance and the Canadian COVID Care Alliance. This doctor has gone from a busy emergency doctor in a rural, quiet community to an extremely busy medical and social activist. He publishes a free newsletter where he shares information from many organizations on which he serves and gives updates on COVID-related science and policy worldwide. Mark's going to join us on the screen, so try and get yourself positioned so you can see, and away we go.
Dear friends, I want to thank each of you for participating in this awareness and fundraising event. I wish I was there in person with you, but I am currently contributing to allied events in Central and Western Canada, including the UCP hosted event and an injection of truth in Calgary in just 2 days. May I please take a few moments to thank several specific people. Thank you, Barbara Burrows, for organizing and hosting this event. And thank you to everyone on your team who helped to make this happen, including Mike Bear of Free Speech Media. Thank you, Dr. Jennifer Hibbert, for your tireless leadership and creativity over the past 4 years. You have done so much within Canada and around the world to advance the medical truth and freedom movement. Thank you, Derek Sloan, for standing for the truth and our rights in the Canadian Parliament, and for continuing and expanding your activism to defend Canadians beyond that sphere. Thank you, Dr. Chris Shoemaker, for being relentless in informing people across Canada and around the world of important truths and enduring the unlawful assaults of the CPSO against you. Last but definitely not least, I want to thank my dear friend and ally, Michael Alexander. In a time when so many lawyers profit by twisting the law until it makes no sense, hurts innocent people, and serves corrupt agendas, we are grateful for your intellect, passion, and dedication. I admire how you navigate the labyrinths of the legal system, insisting that the law should serve what is right and honorable. Without you and rare noble lawyers like you, we would truly be lost. Friends, during the past 4 years, we have experienced a pre-planned, highly coordinated assault against all men, women, and children in the world. This has involved an unprecedented psychological operation using fear and deception. Anthony Fauci and his accomplices illegally funneled US taxpayers' money to create a bioweapon in the form of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, a highly infectious, moderately low virulence coronavirus with various unusual properties, including blood clotting as a major mechanism of harm. Patents, pre-planning, and business deals have been exposed in great detail. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is fact. COVID is a highly coordinated and prepared collection of crimes against humanity. Governments, medical regulators, institutions, and licensing bodies, such as the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario and other provinces, and provincial nurses associations, have been accomplices in these crimes, in my opinion. Without their roles in these crimes against humanity in our country, doctors, scientists, and nurses, like myself, who raised sound scientific and ethical issues since 2020, would have been very successful in triggering important scientific and political debates. We would have averted much disease, economic destruction, social hardship, and death of the COVID era. I suspect some, like Theresa Tam, Justin Trudeau, and Christy Freeland, carried out their roles in these crimes against humanity with full intention and knowledge of the COVID agenda. A global power grab financially and politically, a reduction in the population through death and infertility, and a new era where medical dictators could rule without concern for human rights and freedom. However, I do not think this accounts for all of the many accomplices of the COVID crimes. The psychological operation of COVID, as well described by Jason Christoff and others, was and still is intense. Methods of psychological manipulation have been used against all of us that were previously reserved for enemies in war. Perhaps we are all the enemies of war now. But it is treasonous operatives in our own governments and institutions that are waging this war against us. The psychological manipulation has been so intense and effective that we see behaviors from so-called experts and people in authority, as well as friends, neighbors, and family, that are hard to believe. I do not know exactly what is happening in the minds of Nancy Whitmore and other high-ranking officials in the CPSO, but they have violated human rights, denied science, suppressed debate, and coerced doctors across this province to commit medical assault and violate their oaths. Many people are dead or injured and dealing with major health problems as a result of toxic modified RNA genetic injections contaminated with DNA and multiple undeclared genetic sequences, including the SV40 promoter sequence, which is known to enhance the capacity to permanently genetically modify its victims. The CPSO has insisted since April 2021 that doctors are to say that these injections are safe and effective vaccines. Those of us who have refused to do so have been stripped of our licenses to serve the people of our province. The people of Ontario are now sitting ducks with no nurses and doctors left in the system who will maintain their oaths and defend patients' health and rights no matter what. Since 2020, the leadership in the CPSO, the ONA, and other institutions have embraced their role as the long arm of the COVID crimes against humanity in Ontario. Doctors and nurses who were unlawfully threatened with financial and professional ruin if we asked intelligent questions, raised concerns, exposed truths, prescribed or recommended safe and effective treatments for COVID, including vitamin D or ivermectin, exempted anyone from wearing facial barriers or being injected with the dangerous contaminated genetic experiments that they insist we must all call safe, effective vaccines. I was on the front line in the emergency departments and saw the truth that you were all being lied to and led into danger. In May 2020, under hidden identity, I revealed to you through Rebel News that the Ferguson models were fraud, that the virus was not that deadly, that supporting healthy immune systems was essential, and that there were safe and effective treatments for COVID. Through 2020, I told every patient, colleague, and member of my community the truth about these things. Work became increasingly uncomfortable as I could see my colleagues slipping into the mind control of COVID and choosing the COVID carrots, like easy money and bonus bucks and empty hospitals, while avoiding the COVID sticks, like punishment for pushing back in any way against the COVID agenda. Myself and a tiny percentage of healthcare workers did not succumb to the cult-like atmosphere. We declined positions as high priests in the COVID cult and became the targets of long arms of the criminal COVID enterprise like the CPSO, the ONA, and hospital and university administrators. Throughout 2020, various things were done to drive our entire species toward forced, misrepresented, dangerous genetic injections. These included abuse of PCR technology, deceptive death certificate diagnoses, and other forms of statistical fraud, immune-damaging mandates, and the isolation of healthy people and children, which blocked herd immunity and extended the pandemic, and the obstruction of truly safe and effective treatments for COVID. Everyone's basic rights were grossly violated, and only one door seemed to lead back to freedom: the so-called COVID-19 vaccines. As soon as the information was available, I studied the details of these injections. I studied the drug companies' emergency use authorization applications to the FDA and other medical regulators, including Health Canada. And it was glaringly obvious that we had a major problem and that all men, women, and children were in grave danger. So, in December 2020, I laid down everything I had: high seniority hospital positions, teaching positions with multiple universities, my investments in our family home, to take on a mission with no income and many risks, to warn you. In January 2021, I published the video and article titled, "This is not a vaccine." Shortly after that, I published Doctors, Nurses, Ethics, and the Law, in which I warned doctors and nurses of the crimes that we were being coerced into committing against our patients. I researched and shared with you evolving treatments for COVID, and by June 2021, I published a detailed article and video titled "COVID Vaccines, How Dangerous Are They?", in which I shared detailed science about these injections in language that everyone could understand. Meanwhile, in April 2021, the CPSO published a notice to all doctors across the province demanding that we not prescribe these safe and effective treatments for COVID, including vitamin D or ivermectin, that we not write exemptions to masks or the so-called vaccines, and that we not say or write anything contrary to the COVID agenda as espoused by public health. Since then, they have unlawfully weaponized their authority and violated the rights and careers of multiple good physicians who served you with honor and courage, including Dr. Patrick Phillips, Dr. Roisin Killian, Dr. Mary O'Connor, Dr. Chris Shoemaker, Dr. Crystal Luchke, Dr. Ira Bernstein, and other good physicians who held the line and passed this trial by fire. Many smart physicians have left Canada for greener pastures. Some have left medicine altogether, and some of us are still here and fighting for all Canadians and the future of all of our children and grandchildren. My personal investment in this war has been almost every waking hour and day for 3.5 years, my entire income for the same time period, my future income, and all my possessions and savings. As terrible as the COVID crimes against humanity have been, they are just one major operation in a larger war. The world as we knew it is gone and can only be restored by exceptional actions and sacrifices by all of us who are awake, moral, and courageous enough to fight. Last month, the World Health Assembly signed off on amendments to the International Health Regulations. The IHR amendments confirm the agenda being planned by the same criminal cabal: global tyranny through health governance, probing and PCR sampling of everything from our bodies to our septic systems in search of microbes, real or not, more lockdowns and more forced genetic vaccines, despite the unprecedented deaths and diseases caused by the first ones. We are in a war, my friends, and denial is no solution. We can stick our heads in the sand and accept the end of our society, our rights, our health, our descendants, and our property, or we can fight with everything we have. I choose to fight, and I encourage every one of us to do the same, using the talents and strengths that God gave each of us. The College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario, under CEO Dr. Nancy Whitmore, is a grave threat to all of us. The doctors who will not submit to the coercion to violate you have been eliminated from our hospitals and clinics. The CPSO believes that they have made an example of us to the remaining doctors who did comply with the college and violated their patients and each other during COVID. The remaining doctors in Ontario's and Canada's hospitals and clinics are submitted. They are in place without contrary voices like Dr. Phillips to process you and your family according to the next set of mandates and protocols from the WHO and their illegitimate controllers. This is why we must fight. This is why I continue fighting with everything I have every day to restore ethical healthcare for Canadians and ensure that you and your family, as well as mine, can access honest, confidential, ethical, intelligent healthcare, and even more importantly, that we can be free. We refuse to be processed like cattle. Myself and the other good doctors and nurses in this fight refuse to process you or your family like cattle, according to corrupt billionaires' orders. It is our goal to stop the current CPSO administration abusive actions, deliver the lead culprits to justice, and restore the best and most trusted physicians and surgeons into your service. In this process, we will also terminate the precedent set, which is that doctors serve the bureaucrats and process the patients. Every doctor's duty is to serve their patients honestly, intelligently, ethically, and confidentially. If we do not draw the line here, reverse what has been established during COVID, and restore justice and the rule of law to our country, I believe all of us will lose everything we own, our freedom, our health, and ultimately our lives. This is the mission Michael and the rest of our team are on. This is the mission I am asking you to join if you have not already. I continue giving everything that I have to this war. I ask you to please give what you can from your talents, your time, and your resources. The CPSO have abused their authority for decades and have gone largely unchallenged. When a physician challenges their actions, we are offered a tribunal, but it is a kangaroo court. Doctor versus CPSO ruled over by the CPSO. The tribunal invariably rules in their own favor against the doctor and charges the doctor an exorbitant amount for the process. This is why most doctors submit, retire, or move to another country. Those who challenge the CPSO directly to court without going through their tribunal, as Dr. Jordan Peterson did with the College of Psychologists, find that the court is very biased in the college's favor, upholds the college's ruling, and adds further costs to the doctor. Michael will explain this in greater detail. It takes courage and commitment to do as we have done, which is to go through their tribunal and endure their abuse and violations of procedure and science. Any of you who watched all or part of my tribunal understand what I'm saying. It was dystopic. However, now that we've endured their abusive tribunal and they revoked my license to practice medicine in this province and assigned another $100,000 in costs against me, we are in a position to take them and the record of what they have done to court on a standard of correctness. If the courts are not completely corrupt, we will win in October and begin the process of restoring all the good doctors into your service and restore ethical medicine to Ontario and Canada. If the courts are completely corrupt, we will know in October. And in that case, I will fill out a death certificate of the Canadian judicial system, and we will move forward in our mission to survive and thrive with no delusions. However, I am optimistic. I feel this must be done. We are well advanced in this process. It is a David versus Goliath situation. Please help us. Lastly, I want to acknowledge that there are multiple fronts in the current war for the world, and thank each and every one of you for the actions you take, for the sacrifices you make, for the nights you lie awake strategizing and searching for solutions, and for all the leisure and short-term luxuries you have given up to be real, to be courageous, and to fight for the future of all generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So Mark, as probably many of you know, is extremely busy. And in fact, right now he's in Calgary. And he pre-recorded that for us because in case he wasn't able to be with us. And I got a call from him to say he does want to join us for the questions and answers, but he asked if we could please play the pre-recorded message because he's very, very busy in Calgary right now. So our next, we have four speakers, Michael, Mark, Jennifer, and Derek. Derek is on the road trying to fight the traffic, so he's doing his best to get here. So now I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Jennifer Hibbert. She's a dental surgeon and a specialist in pediatric dentistry and a university educator with extensive clinical and academic experience. She attended University of Toronto for her undergraduate and graduate degrees and attended Albert Einstein College of Medicine for her postgraduate degree in pediatric dentistry. Prior to the pandemic, she ran a large pediatric dental practice in Toronto. Families would fly into Canada to have their children treated by her. She owned and operated a private pediatric referral-only dental clinic and a very busy hospital practice linked with her clinic. Our speaker is also a freelance editor and has written several papers with leading doctors and scientists, notably during the pandemic period. She works with experts around the world on freedom issues and has just returned from Europe, and particularly Geneva, where she joined in a large rally to protest the World Health Organization pandemic treaty. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Jennifer Hibbert. And this bio is not up to date, so I'm going to ask Jennifer to just give you a few more up-to-date things about what she's been up to.
Thanks very much, Barbara. Hi, everybody. I think I met a lot of you here last year and certainly through the year because a lot of us are here, there, and everywhere. So yes, I did just return from Geneva, and I'll give you a little bit more information about my background. So give you an idea of just issues and groups that I've been tapping in with over the last years. I'm a founder of the Canadian COVID Care Alliance. I'm a co-founder of World Council for Health with Tess Laurie. I am vice president of the Canada Health Alliance currently. I'm vice president of the World Freedom Alliance. The World Freedom Alliance, if you don't all know, the World Freedom Alliance actually started the first biggest rally in Trafalgar Square at the very beginning of this COVID whole thing. So I work very closely with Dolores Cahill. Just recently I was in Ireland with her for 2 weeks, and we're working on cooperatives and just how people can actually work within their community, because it's all about your personal sovereignty and how you can function through this, and also gives you resilience so you're able to stand up to what's coming and you work together. So it power in the people and power in knowledge, and that's what we're feeding everybody. What else can I tell you? I'm on the scientific committee and international liaison for the Medicos Pella Vida. Medicos Pella Vida is the largest medical organization in South America and represents all of Latin America. And I've worked with them over the last several years with all of their conferences, and we organize all the international speakers and just getting the whole conference together, running really well. We have another conference coming up in September in Sao Paulo. I am a senior fellow of the FLCCC. You may have all received recently information because there's a expansive project on an international basis, and we're looking to engage significant scientists and members from different countries around the world. And it's all about collaboration and working together. I'm on the scientific committee of the SAVIMS, which is South American Adverse Events Medical Legal Committee. I could go on. You kind of get the picture, right? I just recently started, actually just last fall, or this early spring, a community group in Toronto. I call it Connect Toronto, and it's really all about bringing people together, most importantly, right? Being in person, that's what I'm here to do and be with you today. And also it's about connecting other groups and sharing everything that we have, all the information we have. And, we're just about to launch, I'll be launching a Connect Health, putting all sorts of health information on a channel on Telegram. Again, helping the individual take care of themselves and be able to stand, in their own sovereign health, make their own choices, and then know how to reach out for help and know what to ask for. So that's where we're going with that. I'd like to come back to Michael Alexander, because that is why we're here today. Michael is also my lawyer. I was also affected by, of course, with everything that I was engaged with. My office got raided. That goes back how long ago now, Michael? About 2 years now? I wasn't in the office that day, and the regulatory body for the dental surgeons of Ontario supposedly contacted me that day and said, we have an email. I went, no, and they were in my office at the time. It was 10 o'clock on a Monday morning. I wasn't in the office at the time, and I know it was directly related to something I posted on Sunday morning. So it's funny, we went through a year and a half of a lot of legal backwards and forwards, and I was taken into a discipline committee and went through the motions that most of them go through. It was the Jordan Peterson situation, but I did deal directly with the regulatory body. They sent a whole laundry list of charges that they could give me. Nothing was specifically charged, but of course the most salient one is not fit to practice, right? But they went through a list that's almost laughable, but we all had it. It's exactly the same list that all the medical doctors had to. And actually the discipline meeting committee that I was taken into, the whole thing played out just like it does at every other college. So here I am, and still going strong. I didn't lose my license, As a dental surgeon, I'm not prescribing, but I am doing an awful lot of other things. So I would like to encourage you to support Michael. He's very modest, and I need to tell you that he's been doing this work totally free of charge. He's not making any money. I'm not talking about trying to make money for him, but he needs money to even file a lot of his affidavits and court proceedings. You can't file it without submitting large sums of money to the court system. And certainly when you lose, there's charges there too. So he really needs a lot of support from the community at large. And thank you so much, Barbara, for hosting this event. And she's hosted several other events, and I know more to come. And so please, from your heart, consider this. This is your survival. It's not just helping a fellow man, which we all want to do. It's why we're here, but it's actually, we're actually helping humanity. This is huge, what we're experiencing right now. I know Mark went through a lot. I know you've you've heard from Michael also. And let me tell you, every day I learn more. And there's no such thing as being, well, you can be awake, but fully aware. Every day we're learning more and more and more, and how extremely huge this is and has been for centuries, actually. And the powers are so overpowering. But as I was talking earlier, you need to step back from it and look at it and say, wow, this is so interesting, because the world is not what it appeared to be. And once you can get past that assault on your judgment and your sense of self-worth and all of that you judge yourself with, you step back and it's like, this is better than any sci-fi movie I've seen. And oh, by the way, who believes in sci-fi or fiction anymore? Because it's all storytelling and it's all information's weaved into everything that you see all the time. So I consider this an exciting time to be here. And I know we've heard many people say, you were born for a time like this, and you have all chosen to be here. Just like you've chosen to be here today, you have all chosen to be here. And whether as an observer, to stand strong with the rest of people, as an activist, as somebody that does research, that feeds forward information, and you just hold your space. We all have a different purpose here, and we connect together. Don't be overly influenced by what someone else is doing to feel that you are missing the mark. We are all finding our way forward. We're all pioneers in this. And even at the meetings when I was in Geneva and when I was in Ireland and Palm Springs and wherever I go to meet, because I'm part of the Global COVID Summit Group too, all those doctors you saw in white coats on the steps in Washington, that's another group that I'm closely affiliated with. All of us, we talk the science a lot. We write papers, we put information out in the way that each of us know best, but we're all finding our way. And the one thing we're actually learning is, like all of you know too, how challenging it is. And everyone keeps reflecting and saying, wow, they're so organized. But it's like, well, yeah, they've been doing this for a very long time. I think we're all doing extremely well. And I think just, when you have somebody that has been trained in something and you need to train them with something different, how difficult it is to change their habits. We're on a totally new path. So I think that we have the advantage of being very open to whatever is coming our way, and we will group together. And the disruption that we have in different alliances, like people worry about, is all part of powering you up and strengthening you and making you aware that things are not what they appear to be. And that can even be on your own doorstep. So it is really exciting, and I'm very happy to see you all here today. And stay strong and just smile and just know that, you are meant to be here. And this is a very exciting time for humanity. So, I know I could tell a lot of stories about my family and all that, each of us. And any story I tell, each one of you could say, oh my God, that's my story, that's my story. But that's what brings us close together and bonds us, because you are my family. And I'm here to fight for the communities and make everybody really strong, because no matter what happens, even if there are lockdowns and you find, oh, we agreed to meet in such and such a place and you can't, I know that even talking like this and coming together has empowered every single one of you to be able to stand tall and help anybody around you at that time. So you're always going to be empowered, and you just got to step away from the fear and don't get too caught up when we talk about losing your money, losing your house, that's a distraction. It's a distraction to make you fearful and make you worry about things, and you stop thinking rationally. So we don't need that. And yes, spiritualism is super important. We all have a spiritual side, and we're strongly opening that up. And but don't let that be your only distraction. Let that be your power to be able to deal with what's happening on planet Earth right now. Don't feel like you want to escape into your spiritual world, because that's what they want you to do, okay? So you use that to power up and come back and work together. So thank you very much. Pleasure being here. Now, I didn't talk about Geneva. Do you want me to spend a little time? Okay. The rally was on the 1st of June, which is when the WHO was meeting to pass their pandemic treaty, which we all know didn't pass, but the international health regulations, of course, has always been the big brother behind that. And even though they didn't appear to have a quorum and they didn't have full agreement, who follows the rules, even if it's their own rules, right? So they've pushed that through. Most of you are probably familiar about what it is. It's basically to run all of any perceived health emergency in countries around the world, for them to step in and basically run the show. And also then to decide what kind of health products should be pushed on people and how to do that. And it just goes on. And it's talking about, of course, they tied in the environment, they tied in your pets, they tied in agriculture, they've tied everything in. But we're still going to fight against that. The rally was amazing. I have received the full live stream of all of the speeches. They were wonderful speeches. So I'm going to send it to Barbara and she can distribute it to all of you. And then you can just kind of skip through it. Soon they'll be breaking it up, but it's really very fascinating to listen to. And the day before, we had a leadership meeting conference where about 80 leaders around the world we met, and we actually had no recording. It was really to discuss strategies and just how we could help move forward together. And again, it does come back. It always comes back to the community, I can tell you that. And it also comes back to just basically, stand strong. We're pioneers with this, and we're dealing in it's a new territory for all of us, but we're definitely going to find our way. We'll be planning more conferences and bringing more information back to all of you. And certainly as a summary comes together, I will publish that and bring that to you. So thank you, everybody. It was amazing. And I'm glad to be able to bring the highlights of that to you and to be able to share actually the rally and the day of the rally with you. So you'll be able to see that and watch that. Okay, thank you so much. Oh, do you guys have any questions for me about anything? Yes. Okay, I will tell you a little about Telegram. I've started a chat in Telegram called Connect Toronto, and actually I brought some flyers that I can distribute. You guys are welcome to come to the meetings. They're amazing. I bring in amazing people speaking and it's all talking about just how to function and carry forward. Tomorrow I actually have a meeting, and it's at my house in Toronto, and usually we have around 50 to 100 people showing up. And tomorrow we're going to be talking about, we've got shortwave radios, and we're actually going to be starting the whole process of talking about how to use them and sign up for distributing them. And there's, different levels that we're going to work people through to learn about, and you can decide whether you want to sign up for it there, or we can give you the information of how to access it yourself. This is not a business for anybody. We just want to make it happen for you. I also have speakers talking about food and just how you can grow even in your own kitchen. I'm going to be talking more about the highlights of the WHO. I also, on an ongoing basis, have been doing a lot of work in the quantum field medicine, and I usually have people coming in featuring what the latest, but like medical grade devices. There's a lot on the internet that you can Google and get, the commercial grade red lights and things like that. So been doing a lot of work with pulse electromagnetic fields and with the red light therapy and many, many more things to come. So I will share that, but I do have a chat, Connect Toronto. I'll put the link out. Barbara can tell me how to do that, or I'll send it to her. You guys are welcome to come into that chat. The purpose of that chat is for information to come in, because I'm following, I don't know how many, 50 plus chats and growing. But I bring in, because I'm in groups in Australia and Brazil and South Africa and all over the Middle East. And so when I go into those chats, I will pull out salient things and I will drop it in there. And that's how I started it. And then everybody started doing this. So it's full of fabulous information. Then I will be starting, I'm going to start it very soon, Connect Health. And I will be putting on all the protocols I've collected over the last 4 years and all information that can help you do things at home, and just even down to making your own face cream and things like that. So it's really, really good. And there's a few others that'll break down from there, but the information will come through the chat. Anyways, back to you, Barb.
That's the perfect segue for me to remind this audience about something that you'll probably be very interested in. Julie, did you bring them? Okay. Julie's brought these big postcards. There's a lot of information about natural health on them, but on the back, there's a spot. You need no postage. All you do is sign in, put your MP's name in, and sign it and put it in the mail. And probably, if you don't know, you'll be interested in knowing that our government is doing their best to destroy the natural health industry in favor of big pharma and slipping legislation through that we're not necessarily aware of. So I thought probably this might be a crowd who'd be interested. So Julie brought a lot, and I've got a handful here too. So where are we at? Is Mark signed on by any chance? Okay, well, we're working on getting Mark here, and we're working on getting Derek here, who's been on the highway for a long time. And so Michael's going to come up, and we're going to do some questions and answers, and then hopefully Derek will arrive. And if you're starving, there's plenty of food out, but we're going to do the main. There's some hot food, so we were going to put it on the table at the end. But anyway, please feel free to slip into the bathroom. There's 2 bathrooms if you need them, and the drinks and the food. But in general, I'm going to invite you all to eat after the speakers.
Thanks, Barbara. So if you have any questions about the case, the simple questions are often the easiest. It's complicated. You may not understand something or just want to know about something. So if you have any questions, just the simple questions are the best ones usually. Yeah. I can hear you.
I am the retired allied health professional therapist, and I always write to CPCO how their policy affect our work, because they have certain policy, and doctors prescribe drugs who affect the rehabilitation.
Why don't you come up to ask the question? Because
I just want to kind of statement, because it's very, So I'm a retired allied health occupational therapist and work in physiotherapy. And I usually write to CPCO that their policy affect our rehabilitation, because if they have policy for doctor to prescribe drugs, benzodiazepine, morphine, and then it impairs our rehabilitation because patient falling. So this medication do harm and affects our holistic care, because occupational therapy, physiotherapy is, holistic. We don't use drug. So can, for example, we use this to kind of challenge the CPCO that they are harm patients?
Good. That's a really good question because Section 5(1) of the Medicine Act says that doctors may employ non-traditional modes of therapy. So non-traditional methods of therapy, as long as the risks associated with them are not greater than the risks associated with conventional medical therapies. So there is a right. Now, the problem is I've argued this before the college before and before the courts. In fact, I've already argued it in Mark's case before the tribunal. So, I mean, if you have the right to employ non-traditional techniques in your practice, certainly have a right to express views about non-traditional treatments for COVID-19. It follows logically, right? But they don't want to recognize it. But I don't need to argue that in the current appeal because I need to focus on the core free speech issue. But you're absolutely right to be concerned about that. And the college does have a policy about prescribing medications. That's just a policy. A policy is not the law. If they want to set standards of practice and give them the force of law, they have to ask cabinet to approve the standard. And the college doesn't do that. The College of Nurses does that. But the CPSO doesn't do it. Well, why not? Because if they actually put down what they're trying to do in law, then they wouldn't have the freedom to just investigate and prosecute whomever they want for whatever reason they want. So, but you should be protected under the existing legislation. Anything else, or are people hungry? Yes. No. I'll repeat the question. Okay. So everybody else can. Yes. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Right. Yes. So the question is, if we're successful with Mark in the appeal decision and we get a precedent, can other lawyers use that as a roadmap? Absolutely, yes. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give lawyers a new toolkit in this country to combat bureaucratic tyranny. So this is not just about Mark. This is part of a much, much bigger plan and project. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Okay. Anything else? Okay. So I think Derek is here. Derek? Are you ready to speak? Okay. Oh, Mark's on. Sure.
I'm just going to a warm up. I'm your warm up. You okay? Mark's there. Yeah. Okay. I'm a little bit of a warm up, okay, for Derek. I want you to take a moment, take out your wallet, and take out your health card. And I'm going to tell you to look at it. For those of you who've been at my Connect Toronto last time I had it, I asked the same question. At my hospital recently, it piqued my interest when I'm chief of my department and leadership group told us as chiefs to send it down to our departments that DNR is no longer in the hands of families or patients. It's in the hand of the surgeon. Passed down from the Ministry of Health. So it piqued my interest to look at everything. And I went, let me look at MAID. MAID, DNR, brain dead, and organ retrieval should be called organ harvesting. That's another talk that we'll have another time. But the exercise I want to have you do is turn your card over, look at the back of the card, and does it say donate with a number and initial? How many actually say donate on it? Donor, sorry. Did you put yourself down as donors? Did all of you? No? Yeah, most of you haven't. Yeah, so you call a ministry and get them to take it off, but they won't issue you another card, okay? But they will, and then they'll say that it's in the system, but you make sure that you have an advocate for yourself. Because when you go into the hospital and they go in there and look at your card, it says donor. You just make sure you have somebody there. But anyways, it's just an interesting exercise. You get people, if you don't have it, it's probably your card hasn't been renewed for several years. This is a new initiative. There are some countries where you are an automatic donor and you have to step out of it rather than staying in. But it's, yeah, interesting topics. Anyways, for another day.
Well, a minute ago, I saw Mark had joined us. Is he gone? We had him for a second. There. Hi, Mark. Everybody say hi to Mark. He's on the screen live now. And whoops. Oh, I guess we can only, if we don't,
Staying in.
well, if there's any questions,
Interesting topics. Anyways, for another day.
okay, we want to, if there's questions. We had him for a second. There, hi Mark. Everybody say hi to Mark. It's on the screen right now. I don't know that he's live anymore. Whoops. Oh, I guess we can only.
Can I get one of these?
We don't. If there's any questions. Well, we can't do Mark and we lose. We can't do, okay. Never mind. Give me the audio. Mark, we can't. It turns out we can't have the audio here and the audio there. So everybody just give Mark a huge round of applause and show us appreciation for all that he's done. And I've already told them how busy you are, Mark, and that you're here with us. So we really, really appreciate it. Anyway, thanks. I guess we're not going to be able to do questions and answers with you. So you can get on with what else you're doing in Calgary. Okay, so wait a minute. My next job is to introduce our final speaker. Our final speaker is a father, a husband, an author, and a Canadian political leader. He is a lawyer, a former member of Parliament, and a leader of the Ontario Provincial, the Provincial Ontario Party. He is known around Canada for standing strong for issues that affect Canadians' freedom and Canadian sovereignty. His Amazon best-selling book, Glorious and Free, is a blueprint for bringing Canada back to sanity. Got a copy of that to bring up here when the time comes? Derek Sloan attended law school at Queen's University and is currently a member of the Law Society of Ontario. As a member of Parliament, he represented the riding of Hastings, Lennox, and Addington in Central East Ontario. Wikipedia will tell you differently, but I believe Derek Sloan was expelled from caucus for illuminating some inconvenient truths that contradicted the government narrative, the COVID narrative. As an independent, yes, that deserves an applause. As an independent MP, Derek made significant waves in Parliament, asking questions that no one else would, and conducting various press conferences on Parliament Hill that quickly became the most watched Canadian political videos of all time. After leaving Parliament, Derek became leader of the Ontario Party, a provincial party dedicated to supporting faith, family, and freedom. Derek has copies of his book available today. Please join me in welcoming Derek Sloan, who's been in traffic for a heck of a long time today.
Barbara, that's a great introduction. That's good. Hi, everybody. How are you doing?
Thank you, Barbara, for that introduction. Very flattering. It sounded like a great person she was talking about, so I'd like to meet him. Really glad to be here today and to support Mark and Michael Alexander. I've been working with Michael and Mark for probably about 2 years now. Is it about 2 years? Yeah. So, you know, they're in the midst of a very important fight. There's obviously other people as well that are being harassed and attacked by various organizations. I'm going to talk to you maybe slightly about a slightly different topic, but we've talked about the legal aspect today, I'm sure already. I'd like to talk a little bit about the political aspect. And, you know, if we had the right premier and the right government in power in Ontario, none of this would have happened. So that's right. Yeah, let's applause to that. If the premier in power changed his mind tomorrow and decided that he didn't like the way the CPSO was acting or the College of Nurses was acting, he could change it. The CPSO is created by the Ontario government to regulate physicians, and they can change it tomorrow if they wanted to. They're not going to, but that would be the right thing to do. In fact, the right thing to do would be to disband the CPSO, fire every single person at the top of that, and start afresh, because they have not even remotely achieved their mandate. They've swept the truth under the rug. They've attacked honest and upright doctors for doing the right thing. And instead of just kind of, you know, walking away and saying, well, you know, maybe we were wrong, we're not going to admit it, they're doubling down on it, and they're trying to destroy the lives of good people. So as the leader of a provincial party, the Ontario Party is the party that I'm the leader of, we want to field 124 candidates. That's the number of ridings in Ontario, the next provincial election. And that election may be sooner than you think. It is supposed to be in 4 years, so that would be 2026. So that'd be 2 years from now, but it may be early. There's rumors out there that Doug Ford wants to go before the federal election because he thinks if things swing really far, you know, to the right, that may, because, you know, sometimes the province votes differently than the country, right? So he's a little worried about that. So we could have an early election. So I have a clipboard at the back. So anybody who's interested in thinking about maybe being a candidate, or they want to get more information and know more about what the Ontario Party is fighting for, and we've been fighting for medical autonomy, freedom of speech, bodily autonomy, all of these things, getting indoctrination out of education, running balanced budgets, all the good stuff that I'm sure many of you guys are behind. We had a very comprehensive COVID-19 policy going into the 2022 election. Basically, you know, dropping all the mandates, making the mandates illegal, many things on the freedom front. You can check that out on our website. But if you're interested in potentially being a candidate or wanting to know more about the Ontario Party, I have a clipboard back there. I also have my book, Glorious and Free, which was an Amazon bestseller, I think for only about a week. But you know what? It was a bestseller for a period of time. And during that week, it was above Pamela Anderson's book and below Prince Harry's book. So, you know, that's saying something, right? So I have a copy of that book for $30. So if you want to support me and know more about my story, you can get that over there. So, you know, I support the legal fight that Mark is going through, and I support Michael Alexander and his efforts. But I also support a political alternative here that will just stop this thing dead in its tracks. So an Ontario Party government would disband the CPSO. Maybe we could put Mark in the CPSO to change things up a little bit. So work with us. Please get some more information. You know, be a candidate. Find out more information about that. Be a volunteer. Do whatever you can to get a good government in Ontario. It could be this fall, could be the spring. We don't know, but we need to move, and we need to move forward quickly. So thank you so much for having me here today. And did you want me to answer questions, or should I? Okay. Okay, so Barbara is saying she'd like Michael and Jennifer to come up for questions as well. Okay. Okay. Yep. So we got some questions here.
Could you come up and speak in the mic, because otherwise.
Oh, that's great.
Okay. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Joanna. Okay, I am from Mississauga, and I am a member of People's Party of Canada. My question is, if your party is cooperating with People's Party of Canada, which also has a very brave, program.
So the question is, are we working with the People's Party of Canada? So the People's Party of Canada is a federal political party. The Ontario Party is a provincial party here in Ontario. So if you support the PPC, you can vote for both parties. There's no overlap there. You can vote in Ontario. You can also vote federally. There's no, we don't have a specific working arrangement, but I know Maxime very well. We speak, somewhat frequently, and I like the work that they're doing, but we don't have an official, working arrangement. But again, we're working in different spheres. So, right here.
Can you explain a little bit about the requirements for being a candidate for your party?
Really good question.
I don't need to.
Okay. So the question here was, she wants to know about the requirements for being a candidate for our party. So to be a candidate in an election, the basic requirements are that you are 18 and a Canadian citizen and an Ontario resident, typically. So that's the basic requirements. In terms of being for our party, we have a charter, which is sort of a basic sort of attestation of our principles, which deals with a lot of the freedom issues that I've spoken. My guess is most people here would agree with it, but we ask that you sign off an agreement with those principles. And then other than that, there are no other requirements. It's typically advisable to kind of live in the area that you want to run in, but that's not always the case. We've had candidates that live close to the area, or sometimes not even close at all. So there's no rule that says you have to live in the riding that you're running in. Now, if we can get someone who lives in the riding, that's ideal, but it doesn't have to be that way. So does that answer your question, or do you want? Yes. Okay.
So we all know that politics is generated and funded by lots and lots and lots and lots of money. And usually, from what I can see from the Liberal and the Conservatives, it feels like a uniparty to me. They're all funded from the same sides. So in regards to having your party, what are the funding availabilities? And if you can say a little bit about, it's fine if you, like, as a not an unknown party, but I mean a minority party, how much do you think you can actually gain in terms of chairs in regards to what's happening now?
Okay, so the Ontario Party in the 2022 election, we ran 105 candidates and we got 85,000 votes. So that's pretty good. That's a pretty good first kick at the can. So we're not starting from zero. We're starting from 85,000 at our threshold, and we want to go more than that. We want to move forward. The other question was, how many seats are we going to win? I don't know, and I don't really care either, because there's a lot of influence you can have whether you're winning seats or whether you're not winning seats. As you're getting, if the progressive conservatives look and they see, even if you're getting 3, 4, 5% of the vote, that's huge. They say, wow, we need that 5% of the vote is the difference between an election. So when they see that kind of thing, they respond. And I'll tell you, how many people have heard about some of the things that have been going on in Saskatchewan, where they're coming out with rules about the children aren't allowed to change their gender without their parents' permission in school and things like this. So a lot of the stuff that the Scott Moe government has done is because there's another smaller party there, similar to the Ontario Party, that's doing well in the polls, And everything that that party does, Scott Moe does. Like within 3 days, Scott Moe does what this small party says. So this small party is made up of one member of the legislature that was kicked out for not taking the vaccine. So she was the leader of this party called the Saskatchewan United Party, which is different than the Saskatchewan Party. And so first they came out and they said, you know, you need to make a law saying that kids can't just randomly change their gender and hide it from their parents and the school play along. And so Scott Moe did that. And then they said, well, if you had any guts, you'd use the notwithstanding clause. Like 3 days later, Scott Moe used the notwithstanding clause. So the point is that even a small party that doesn't have any seats can swing the tide in a big way. Now, we want to win, but you know, if we don't win in 4 years, let's not be disappointed because, I mean, these parties have been around for like 100 years. So if it takes us a little bit of time to completely win everything, that's okay, but we can still have a lot of influence along the road. Oh, in terms of the money, let me just talk about the money briefly. So in terms of being a candidate, in terms of the money that's required, people do fundraise, but local candidate campaigns can be run on a very shoestring budget. Our party at the head level in 2022, we raised and spent over $1 million in that campaign. Now that's the head party. So all the little ridings also spent money as well, but they obviously spent much less. So we had candidates that spent like basically nothing. We had candidates that spent a few $1,000s. But money, don't let money be a impediment to you running. You can run campaigns that spend a lot of money. You can run campaigns on a shoestring budget. The most important thing is just your attitude and just wanting to be involved. So that's the most important thing. Okay, right here. Yep. Question is, are Dominion voting machines used in federal and provincial elections? So provincially, yes. Federally, no. So, and they will be, so Dominion will be again used in the provincial elections. And, you know, it is what it is for now. So. So so the question is, did anybody ask for a manual recount? And, why was the media talking about Ford getting in the night before? So the manual recount, I'm not even sure if that's available. So when we were asking for an audit of, the count, they gave us a sheet of paper. It's like, here's the tabulations that the machine did. And it's like, well, if the machine is fraudulent, the little paper that it spits out that tells you that it did the right thing is not going to help, right? So, unfortunately, that's the most you can do by simply asking. There may be additional things you can do in a court of law, but as we know, the courts of law are, not always the way to get justice in this country. Well, listen, I will say this. I don't trust any of that. I believe in paper ballots. And federally, we do have paper ballots. So if you remember, Donald Trump actually, so in the whole thing where they were talking about Dominion, the government of the federal elections agency, Elections Canada, actually tweeted out and said, we've been getting a lot of questions about, whether we use like Dominion or whatever, and we use paper ballots. And then Donald Trump picked up on that and was using it. Now, there's other ways to cheat though, even if you have paper ballots, and it comes down to voter ID and things like this. And it's too easy to actually vote in the first place. All of that aside though, there's not that much I can do about that or any of us can do about that now. So the question is basically, can we change it so that it's, a real count by an independent agency? Yeah. You can ask, but it's not going to happen. Now, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if that's a concern that you have, you can email Elections Ontario and say, how do I know that the Dominion machines are, accurate? How do I know that the results are accurate? I will say, from my perspective, and I don't know what cheating did or didn't happen, but from my perspective, the vote actually turned out along the lines of what I was hearing at the doors. And I knocked on thousands of doors in my own riding and other candidates' ridings. And this is generally what I heard. They didn't like or trust anybody. They didn't like the Greens. They definitely didn't like the Liberals. They didn't like the NDP. They didn't really like the Conservatives, but a lot of people didn't know what else to do. So what ended up happening in the election is that the voter turnout was the lowest we'd had in like 100 years. So that definitely reflected what I was hearing at the doors. And pretty much every party on an actual vote count basis did worse. So the Conservatives got less votes than they did before. The NDP got less votes than they did before. The Liberals got even less votes than the drubbing they received before. But as a percentage, the Conservatives won more seats. So was there cheating? I don't know. We got enough votes to meet a certain threshold to get certain resources from the government. So if they were 100% cheating, they wouldn't have let us reach that threshold. So I don't know. My Cole's notes on this, I don't know what's happening. I can't control it, but it shouldn't stop us from fighting to take the province back.
Thank you, Derek. Okay. Oh no, he's gone. We had another surprise guest. I don't know whether you noticed on the screen that Dr. Shoemaker was with us, but now he's gone again. No? Well, from wherever he was, he signed into our live stream, and I don't know if I can. You have a way of getting in touch with him? Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna say what I want to say to wind up, and if we can get him, that will be absolutely fine. I have a huge thank you. I have a huge thank you for a lot of people. Mike Bayer has just helped enormously with the AV. Believe me, I did not know how to live stream myself. So that's just greatly appreciated. And Mike and Arnie came and put up all the tarps. That was in case it rained. I don't know what we would have done if it rained, because you wouldn't all fit under the tarp, so it's much appreciated. And our esteemed speakers, who are very, very busy and have found the time to come, and I think they're able to stay and be able to talk with you afterwards in private conversations where you can continue your questions and answers. So I mentioned the bathrooms. There's one upstairs. There's one downstairs. You've been, although as far as I can see, nobody's helping themselves to the probably 100 soft drinks and water. So have drinks. And Heidi wants to say something. Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, well, we'll wait, and hopefully we'll be with Dr. Shoemaker. So I'll just explain the system for eating. If you go up the patio on this side, and go into the sunroom from this side, you'll see that you can come wind down through the food table, and then you can come out this door. And I think that'll mean that everybody will be able to, I hope, and if you've got food that's not yet on the table, it's definitely time to put it. So I don't know, why don't a few of you start eating and the rest of us will, because you can't all get your food at the same time anyway. And then don't forget the cards that Julie has to send to your MP. Ah, Dr. Shoemaker. Okay, I have to give up the mic so he can say hello. Please.
Well, hello everyone. So glad you're there. I'm sorry that I couldn't be there. I had to get out here to Calgary in preparation for this event that Mark and I will be at. Mark and I both appreciate the wonderful job that Michael Alexander does for both of us on this whole story. And we're just going to continue to fight. The 3 of us, 4 of us, 5 of us, 6 of us, whatever it takes, the 9 of us, whatever it takes to take these folks down for what they've done to medical autonomy, we have to do it. And our hats are off to Michael and his expertise. And that's all I really wanted to say. And blessings to everybody there today.
That's wonderful. Thank you very, very much for finding the time to get onto our live stream. I wish I could be inviting you for dinner.
Have a great time, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Barbara.
Okay. Get some food and some drink.